All the comic books from this episode come from the Comic Book Station Dollar Bin, located in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. Hello, my fellow YouTubers. I hope you're doing well. What I have with me here is a stack of $1 bin comic books that I picked up at the Comic Book Station at Greenpoint, Brooklyn. We're going to go through these, and I'm going to evaluate the value of each one. These I picked knowing the covers and having an idea of their value and worth. Some of them are personal, so you'll get to see which one I felt are personal. So we're going to start with Unity Zero, and Unity Zero is a collaboration of all the characters from Valiant back in the 90s. It was a big deal. This issue was actually free. All these issues that I got in the stack were $1 each, but this was free at the time. It was actually hard to get. People kept taking a bunch of them, so not a lot of us were able to get this issue. But other than that, this story of Unity, I cannot go over. It's a bit complex, but I felt that the story was a little bit of a lackluster. I just wasn't into it. It just never clicked in. Valiant comic books had really beautiful covers, and this was a prime example of what they always had posted in the comic book stores, which kind of sold the point of the idea of this gathering of well-known characters from Valiant into this one storyline, which, you know, Marvel and DC has done before. The value of this comic book is not so high. It's kind of decent. I would say it's going to be about $2 to $3. Nothing special. Not because it's free, but I feel that the storyline will not enhance the actual value of this comic book. They're coming together, I would say, can do that, but it's not strong. In addition to that, I mean, even if a movie came out similar to this, it would take forever to create that one movie and to have all these characters in there. And, you know, even though Bloodshot's in there, this is Ray. I think Bloodshot is somewhere around here. He's not. But there is Eternal Warrior, Magnus Robofighter, Exo Man of War, and you got also Archer right here. That's Armstrong. Archer's right here, actually. And some other characters. But other than that, not a strong story. To get the movie going for this, you know, all the movies after Bloodshot have to follow through before getting into this. I mean, they could get into this, but it'll be like a how DC had approached their characters by making Justice League after, you know, 3 to 4 characters rather than the whole entire team that Marvel did. Next issue is Youngblood 1. This is the first appearance of all the Youngblood members. A lot of people. I got this when it came out in the 90s, and I loved it. I loved the Rob Liefeld back in the 90s when he did the New Mutants. And when he did the New Mutants, it was awesome. The New Mutants basically was the early start for Cable, Deadpool, all sorts of characters. But in addition to that, it was a fun story, well written. Even though Liefeld did the drawings, I felt that they weren't strong. But when he did certain drawings, I just felt that it was, you know, it worked. But Youngblood, to me, was his first comic book alone as a writer. And it really was a huge lackluster. It wasn't a great story. It was just a lot of showing off. I just felt that the writing could have been 10 times better than what it is now. This is a bunch of new characters that are cool designs, cool ideas, awesome name. Just didn't click in. The value of this comic book I got, of course, all these were $1. And some people are actually selling this for $10. It's really not worth that much. There were so many copies. And it's a shame because there's so many good things you could do with these characters, and I just believe that maybe later in time there will be a spin-off that will make these characters much more efficient in the storytelling of each character. So having this is actually a good thing as a #1 issue, but the value of it is very low because of the first appearance and the storyline of it, and how much of a lackluster that storyline was. Wildcats issue 2, the silver. I think there's a lot of these copies. If you get the white, it actually is worth a lot more money than this one. This is the first appearance of Wetworks, my favorite team created by Willis Patachio. And their first appearance happened in the last few pages of this. This comic book does have a certain value. Wildcats is a very awesome comic book series by Jim Lee. I enjoyed the comic book. I love the art, of course. It's Jim Lee. But in addition to that, you know, I kind of went left and right with Wildcats, and this second issue followed through from the first issue, which is their first appearance for Wildcats. And then behind it is a mini story of Wetworks. So the value of this comic book, I would say it's somewhere around $7 to $8. Just because Wetworks is their first appearance in there, a very good concept, very interesting storyline with Wetworks. But I just felt after when 2 or 3 of these comic books from Image way back in the 90s started, it was like at a good start and it just went downhill. I just think they didn't take the Marvel approach, which was a relationship with the characters to the reader. So, and I think that's why Marvel has become so well written, is that there's a relationship with the reader to what they can understand of the villain or the hero. And I just felt that they missed the mark when they did these comic books. They were fun comic books, but they weren't the greatest comic books. The art, of course, was always there. That's what they were known for, and they gave it a shot and went with faith and did their own thing. And I think it took a lot of guts to do something like that. A lot of people know that. And this issue to me is worth having in a collection, but to sell it is literally it's not going to get you a lot of money out of it, because you know, there's a lot of copies and, you know, no one's interested in Wetworks, but the concept of Wetworks is an excellent concept. It could be actually be turned into a movie. But moving along, got the first appearance of Hardcorps here, and it was drawn on a cover by Jim Lee. There's a nice spread cover that just opens on this side and showing who the enemy is, who are they attacking. The art on this is great. The story is not so bad. It's a 90s story, I think. I have read the story and, you know, wasn't that excited about it. It was decent. But this is their first appearance. They're a very interesting group. They have a, it's really one of the team-ups that Valiant had in the 90s. And I felt that... for me, when I tried to buy a comic book at this price, it just was too high. Marvel at the time was $1, and this comic book was $2.50. So an extra $1.50 to me was a lot of money. But unfortunately, you know, now I bought this for $1 after like 18 years. It tells you where this comic book lies. And for me, it's the artist in the cover. It's the team in their first appearance. Their story is just, it could be better, but it didn't get there. Not even the spin-off that happened in the late 2000s was picking up, because I just felt the stories weren't really that strong. Everybody knows this issue. This is the death of Superman, and this is after the death of Superman. So basically, there's so many copies of these, and though the value of this comic book is so bad, it has so many important characters that are titular to future comic books. You got the first appearance of Superboy, who was by Con-El, the Man of Steel, John Henry, Cyborg Superman, Hank Henshaw, Eradicator, and the White Rabbit. This comic book had when I picked it up, I thought this was a nice, clean, safe comic book, unopened. But unfortunately, when I started feeling the comic book, there was a little bit of a bend right here from the hologram behind it. And I know that hologram's behind it, so that means that the hologram is damaged. But the book was never opened from this poly bag. And the value of this comic book, you know, it's not going to go high until they make... I think Cyborg Superman, which is very hard to get to, because you got to have like 3 sequels before you could get to them, or 2, or you could just do it straight on. But they didn't have the cojones to do a Cyborg Superman movie. They did do it on a TV show, but they've shown a mild introduction to Hank Henshaw. I just felt it was weak. The comic books were 10 times stronger, and though it felt like a introduction like the Fantastic Four, his storyline continued little by little in each other comic book until this very comic book where he first appeared as Cyborg Superman. And to me, that's my favorite issue. And unfortunately, the value of it is not so high because he made so many copies, and basically it just never picked up. You could get these $1 anywhere, and therefore it stays $1. This is the first appearance of Linear Man. This is Superman issue number 476. This is a very good story. It is a typical Flash story where a person from the future comes and causes all this chaos. So it runs with that concept. And this is the first appearance of Linear Man. I think it's a very cool character. It's very similar to Cable. And if you ask me, is it worth money? Most likely, I would say $5 to $10. So with that being said, you know, it has potential, but is it worth having a collection? Absolutely. It's the first appearance of Linear Man, and I would recommend having this. Okay, moving on to Steel. Issue 0 Steel. I think this was a great story. Wasn't the best, but Lily Steel somehow makes his own armor, but he comes in contact with these individuals, and he somehow miraculously through them, I'm going base streaming on this, actually turns to steel without the use of putting on the armor. So it's like one of those Iron Man scenes where he starts out putting together the suit with the arms, but then in the third one, the suit comes to his body. So it's the same thing with Steel Zero. They try to justify him going into the suit without even putting it on. It just goes on. That's the part of Steel that makes this issue special. Is it worthy of value? Most likely not, unless they do a movie where he has that sort of ability. And still, the value of it, not so much. I have the issue of X here. I think this is a great book. I think it's a decent story. If you ask me, this is the first issue. I'm not sure if this is his first appearance. I've been looking at it for the database, but I was never able to find that. Excuse the camera war. Got Iron Man issue number 286. This is when Rhodey took over the suit for War Machine, and the West Coast Avengers basically thought that he was an imposter, so they're having this fight with him, and he has to prove that he was designated this suit. And from that point on, this comic book has a really good story to follow up on War Machine's first appearance, and I think it's a carry-on story. The value of this comic book has no value at all. I mean, it's just a follow-up. So that comic book, I mean, if they made a show about him coming against the West Coast Avengers, maybe this will have a little bit of a higher value, but it can't go beyond, above and beyond. And here is Batman and the Outsiders, first issue, back in 2007. This is not the first time they did the Outsiders. It's probably the second, third time. And to me, this book has only one good appearance. It's the Mr. Jordine's first appearance. But other than that, this is actually a decent story. Great comic book. I would recommend it for a collection. The rest of the comic books after this, I couldn't follow through. I just read them, just didn't follow through on them, just didn't understand them. I just felt some of the storylines were a bit all over the place and not following up with certain characters, or it just, for me, it just didn't suit me. So, but that's just me. It could work for you, but not for me. I read that comic book in issue 2, 3, and 4, and I just felt it just didn't click with me. So, but to have the first issue is really important because literally it's the genesis of all the other issues, and it's the beginning of it. So it's one of those comic books where it's like, oh, it's number 1, here it is, I'll take this one. So, and that's it. That's all the comic books I have in this pile. Thank you for watching. Special thanks to the apps below in the making of this episode. Please subscribe and like.